What's up, everybody? Tech Checker here, and today we're going to take a look at the Hasbro Marvel Legends 12-inch Captain America action figure. Now, this is just like the Spider-Man 12-inch. This is a really cool figure, and I am super happy that I grabbed this. Now, Amazon had this figure discounted quite a bit from the regular $49.99 down to about $31. And I was able to get my local Walmart to price match this. And I gotta say, this figure is fun to play with. It's got all the same articulation that we'll go through in just a little bit that your regular 6-inch Marvel Legends has. So, again, I don't have a good setup to be able to do some nice package 360s, so we're just going to have to deal with these still photos that I took. But in the end, the more important part is taking a look at the actual action figure, right? Go ahead and throw a comment if you hated my intro. I might actually comment and say I hated it too. All right, let's crack this thing open and take a closer look. Starting off with the articulation on this figure now, we know that this is a 12-inch figure, and the articulation on him, on Cap, is really, really good. It's not quite as good as the Spider-Man, but it's still quite good. And so his head is on a ball joint with a hinge in the neck, and he can look up really well. He can look up almost all the way, and then he can look down, get his chin into his chest, which is great. And then side to side, he's got no issues there, nothing hindering the motion here. And then he has just a little bit of tilt, definitely more than Spider-Man had, which is awesome. In the shoulders, he's got a ball joint and then a hinge as well. You can get his shoulder almost, it's not quite all the way out, but it's still pretty good. And then these shoulder plates are actually also on a kind of a hinge as well, so those move with it. He's got full rotation of the shoulder, so that's good. He's got an upper bicep swivel. It does look a little bit odd when you activate it. And then he's got double jointed elbows, but really the top joint doesn't do anything, so they probably didn't need to have that. And in the wrist, he's got a peg joint. Oops, you can see that popped out. The hands do pop out a little bit easy, but he's got a peg joint and then also a hinge joint in each wrist. I can put that back together, and so you can see he can move it up and he could curl it down pretty well. Moving into the torso, he's got pretty much the same basics that Spider-Man had. He's got a double jointed or a double ball peg in the upper torso, and he can crunch forward pretty well, especially with the hinge joint that's lower down. And then he can, he's got really good back arch motion with both of those joints together. The upper torso piece, mine seems to be stuck, and I'm a little worried to kind of force it too much because I don't want it to snap. Right now it kind of snaps back in place, but he does get some crunch there. In the hips, he's got T-jointed hip joints or ball joints, and he actually has better splits than Spider-Man has, which is awesome. And he's got a really good forward kick. He can get it out pretty much 90 degrees, which is awesome. And then backwards kick, it's pretty well on par with what we typically see in the Marvel Legends, so nothing too extraordinary. He's got an upper thigh cut, which works really well. There is a little bit of break in the costume on the hip, but it still looks really good. Double jointed knees, and they bend all the way in half, and that is awesome. I'm super happy with that. There is an upper shin cut peg joint, which works really well, and then there is an ankle hinge that allows really good backwards and pretty well, I mean, there's a little bit of forward, but not very much at all. And then he does have an ankle rocker, which works very, very well. So overall, I'm really, really happy with the articulation on this figure. Yeah, there are some issues with it, but for the size of the figure, with it being pretty well on par with your standard 6-inch figure, he's got really good articulation. All right, at the risk of sounding like I'm frothing at the mouth over the sculpt of this Captain America, I have to say I love pretty much everything about the sculpt that they did on this figure. I think they did an amazing job. Starting with the head, I think there's just nothing that I don't like about this. You can see the nice brow. I like the way they've cut the brow, and I like how that kind of arches over towards the top into the helmet and back. I like the earpiece, and I love the chin strap sculpt work. I think they just did an amazing job on this head sculpt. I have no issues, and it does kind of look. I believe it looks a little bit like. Oh, and I'm losing his name right now, but moving into the chest, there's so many details on this figure with the armor, with the little hexagon shapes that are actually sculpted in, and the little plates of armor, and then you can see kind of the texture in the white arm bicep area. Just there's so many details sculpted into this figure. You can see he's actually got sculpted zipper on the torso chest. This belt it's a floating belt that works really, or it looks really nice. They've sculpted a lot of texture into it. It just overall, this figure has so much unique sculpt throughout. I mean, there aren't very many smooth spots on the figure, and when there are smooth spots, it fits really well. I mean, there's some nice wrinkling in the pants, just above the knee. The top seam is sculpted. It just I can't get over how detailed this figure is. I think Hasbro did an amazing job sculpting this figure, and I just can't say enough good things about it. So I'm really stoked that I got this figure, especially because of this sculpt work. I would have to say that the paint on this figure is probably the weakest point of this 12-inch figure, but that's not to say that it's bad. I think there's just a little bit of quality issues within, especially within the face. I think on this particular one, I think they got the eyes relatively well. You can see his left eye is shifted to his left a little bit more than it should. There is definitely some bleed and some missing paint on like the strap, the chin strap. So with that, it's just a little bit messy. I do like that they got the skin or the lip tone paint a little bit different than the face. So I'm happy with how that. Let's see if I can get that. There we go. I think they did a really good job painting this particular head. I will note that on the neck peg, or not the peg, but just below the peg, the paint is a little thin, so you can see the blue coming through. And what that does also is it makes the skin tone not the same as the face. And so it looks like it's not quite matching the way that it should. Moving into the rest of the body, I think they did a really good job with the paint. I think the majority of it is quite clean. I like the little buckles and the straps on his forearms. They did a really nice job. That's nice and clean, and they actually painted the details. I'm really happy with how that turned out. The belt buckle looks great. Even the where it buckles, there's a little bit of black in there. The pouches could have used a little bit of shading of some sort, but these knee pads turned out really cool with the scraping or the scratches on it. So aside from the couple of spots where it's bleeding, the majority of the figure is painted really well. There are spots that, yeah, a little bit of shading probably would have gone a long way to make this figure even better, but I'm not even going to complain about that, because I think this thing looks awesome. Originally, when I was looking at it in the box at the store, I wasn't really happy with the way that the paint was looking in package, but now that I've got it out and in my hands, I'm super happy with it. I will note, no paint on the boots and shoes. That I don't like. I wish there was a little bit of shading of some sort on the boots, but overall, I'm still really happy. All right, so Cap comes with his shield, as you would expect, and this is a really nice shield. I like it. It's really big, just like the figure is really big. I think it's painted really well. It's very cleanly painted. Mine does have a little bit of a plastic weird look on the front, but you can't really see it in here. And then these straps are sculpted really nice. There's no real paint on them, but they look nice. They're kind of a softer plastic. They're a little more malleable, that so you can use it to kind of get those over his arms. And we'll talk about some of the issues with this in a little bit. But overall, I'm happy with it. You can see there's some kind of glue that's kind of messily thrown on there and slapped on. But I'm really happy, like I said, with the way that this shield turned out. But let's take a look at this alternate head, which is his unmasked Steve Rogers head. Now, there's some really good positives to it. I don't like the way that the eyes turned out. You can see his left eye is looking up, and his hair, I don't like this seam for the hairline. It makes it look like it should be you should be able to pop the hair off, and maybe you can, so that the other accessory can fit on there. You can see I'm afraid to try and pull it off too hard. I'm wanting it to be able to allow the cowl to be able to go on there. So if you were able to take the hair off, you could slide that on. I'm guessing that's not true. I'm guessing that this empty cowl is just so that he can hold his helmet in his hand. Get that little spot off there. But I think that's really cool. I think it's a cool accessory. But you can see here, it's not gonna fit, and I'm not gonna force it. So, yeah. So I think it's cool. He does come with an extra set of fist hands, and these are sculpted just as nicely as his kind of open hands. There's no paint on them, just like the other hands had no paint on them, but they're sculpted really, really well. And they peg in pretty easily. As we saw earlier, his hands can pop out pretty easy when you need to, and they just peg right in here, just like so. And now you've got Cap making a fist. Nothing too spectacular there. So let's take a look at what he looks like with his unmasked head. Pop Steve Rogers unmasked on, and here we go. And if he didn't have a derp eye, he'd look really awesome. Instead, he just looks awesome. So, beggars can't be choosers. And you can see he can hold this cowl in his hand. You can move it however you want, and he looks awesome. So, now, with the shield, and I haven't 100% been successful with this. See if I can get it this time. You basically can just... Oh, there's the issue. There's the issue. So these kind of slide in, and once you slide them out and they start getting loose, they don't stay in place real well. So that's my biggest complaint when it comes to these straps. They pop off, they don't stay in, and it's kind of difficult. So if someone watching this video has a better strategy for getting the shield on Cap's arm, please let me know in the comments. And if you've got a video that you can share, link to it, and I would love to see it, because I have yet been successful at getting this stupid thing to stay on. So we're there. Let's just give up on that for right now. Alrighty, so there is one other feature that is kind of cool with this, and you'll notice that Cap has a little star on his back, and you can actually pop that out by pressing the star on his chest, and that pops it out. And that little star you can take and peg into the shield, and then that just pegs basically into his back, and he's got storage for his shield. One thing I don't like about this is because the star is rounded a little bit, it doesn't stay in his back, that back hole, all that well, so it will pop out pretty easily. But it looks pretty cool either way, having it on his back. I don't care for the fact that you have to pull the the straps off in order for that to work. They are soft enough that you could potentially squish them and have them on, but because of the way that that star is fitted, it's probably not going to stay. But overall, I'm happy with the accessories. A pistol probably would have been nice, and then a holster for it, but I am happy with what we got. If you haven't already figured out, I am highly recommending that you get this figure. This 12-inch Captain America from Hasbro in the Marvel Legends line is really, really cool. From the sculpt to the articulation and even the paint, even though there are a few weaknesses there, it's still totally worth the money. Now, I don't know that it's worth $49.99, which is retail price. I got this one for about 31 bucks or so. So if you can get it on sale right now, I believe Amazon has it for about 31 bucks. Go get it. You're not going to be disappointed. Make sure you stay tuned for more, hit subscribe, and I will see you later.
Tetris Brain Blast.